We'll see you next time.
Good afternoon. Here's what's making news this Thursday, the 10th of October. Hurricane Milton makes landfall in Florida in what could be the storm of the century. Residents told it's too late to leave as tornadoes sweep through. A bullying bombshell damning claims from the Deputy Prime Minister's former top staffer. A deadly head-on collision in Sydney's southwest. A social media summit. The PM and state leaders consider age limits for children. Roofs cave in as southeast Queensland is battered by flooding and large hailstones. And residents threatened with fines for leaving their rubbish bins out for too long.
This is 10 News First Lunchtime with Angela Bishop.
Good afternoon. We begin with breaking news out of the US where Hurricane Milton has made landfall in Florida. The monster Category 3 storm is smashing the west coast with ferocious winds and a series of tornadoes. There have been reports of multiple fatalities, with authorities warning the danger isn't over yet. Hundreds of homes have been damaged and millions of residents are without power as the so-called once-in-a-century storm continues to wreak havoc. Christian Benavides has the latest from Tampa.
Hurricane Milton made landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast Wednesday after officials and residents took precautions ahead of the potentially deadly storm. In Sarasota, ambulances lined up, ready to evacuate nursing homes.
Milton still carries incredible destructiveness, can wipe out communities.
In an address to the nation, President Biden said the federal government will work with Florida officials to help pump floodwater, restore power, and clear debris that can turn into deadly projectiles during heavy winds.
I encourage people to look for safer shelter. Sometimes moving just a few miles can mean the difference between life and death.
The Tampa area has not had a hurricane this powerful in more than a century. Officials are concerned for the potential of deadly storm surge and those hurricane force winds.
It's moving toward the northeast at 17 miles per hour, and it will continue to move across central Florida throughout the night and into the early morning hours.
As Milton approached, mandatory evacuation orders and warnings were issued to millions.
We had to convince folks to get out of high rises and that even if they were 7 stories up or more, then they were still at risk.
I've never been like this close to like a big hurt. We're just gonna keep sheltered up in our hotel room. I mean, we brought books, we brought card games and stuff.
Several major theme parks ceased operations and Orlando's airport closed ahead of Milton's landfall.
Christian Benavides there. The Deputy Prime Minister's Chief of Staff has made bombshell allegations today, claiming she's been bullied out of her job. Chloe Burris joins us now live from Parliament House. Chloe, what more can you tell us about these accusations?
Well, Jo Tanoski claims she was sidelined from her job after raising a bullying complaint. In a press conference here in Parliament House today, she's told media that on a plane back to Australia after an official trip to Ukraine in April, she raised concerns with Richard Marles about bullying behaviour, not by him, by staff members in the office. When they got back, she claims he told her to look for another job and demanded she immediately take leave. Then when she got back from that leave, she says she was informed she could never return to her role. She says she hasn't seen or heard from Richard Marles in months.
No fair process has been followed. I continue to be employed officially as the Deputy Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, but I have been prevented from doing my job. I am unable to access my office unless I provide 24 hours notice, and I have been warned by a senior staffing representative that I am not safe and to stay away from the DPMO.
We have received a statement in response. A spokesperson for Richard Marles says a number of the assertions and recollections are contested. Ms Tanoski has been treated with respect and courtesy. And it should be noted that these accusations have been made public on a day when Anthony Albanese is overseas, and so Richard Marles is right now the acting Prime Minister.
Thanks, Chloe. 3 dogs have been shot dead after a woman was attacked and critically injured in Melbourne's southeast. Police were called to a property in Dandenong just before 10 this morning and found a woman being attacked in the backyard. Officers used capsicum spray before using their firearms to kill the animals. The woman was taken to hospital in critical condition and investigations are underway. A man has died and 2 others are injured following a head-on crash between 2 utes in Sydney's southwest. The incident happened just before 5 this morning after one of the vehicles reportedly veered onto the wrong side of the road. The driver was pronounced dead at the scene. A father and his 13-year-old son in the second vehicle were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Anyone with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. Heavy rains and flash flooding continue to batter south-east Queensland. Right now, businesses are cleaning up the damage caused by last night's deluge. Matt Johnston has more.
Well, good afternoon to you from Morayfield, north of Brisbane. This was ground zero in yesterday's storms as they smashed the southeast. And today you can see the cleanup is well and truly underway. At this shopping centre where we are, the roof in every store we've been in caved in. Have a look at some of these CCTV pictures we've obtained this morning. You can see staff in every instance ran for cover. At this martial arts studio, children were inside as the ceiling tiles came down. We spoke to several business owners here today. Take a listen.
You don't have time to think, just time to act. One of our students down the end just wasn't able to move fast enough. The tiles started coming down on her. I managed to get to her just in time and I just had to shield her with myself.
Now, the storm front that moved through, it was small on the radar, but it packed a hefty punch. Hail blanketed the ground. Children were playing in it like scenes from a Winter Wonderland movie. There were 65,000 lightning strikes recorded, and it wasn't just here north of Brisbane that was hit hard. These storms started up on the Western Downs near Tara at Kogan. Hail there turned the ground white. There was 160 mils of rain recorded at Mudgeeraba on the Gold Coast in just 1 hour yesterday afternoon. That is more than 1 month's worth of rain. And across the southeast, there were more than 90 calls to the SES, mostly for leaky roofs. There were 7,000 homes at one point disconnected from power. Most of those have now been reconnected. We'll have the latest on the recovery effort here in Brisbane's north in 10 News First at 5.
And 10 News First has received an update from Moreton Bay Council, which is now demanding answers from the Bureau of Meteorology over a lack of storm warning alerts as the severe weather hit yesterday. 2 state leaders have come together to host a social media summit that will bring together mental health and technology experts to hear about the challenges associated with being online. Taylor Ryan is there.
Well, here in Sydney, the premiers of New South Wales and South Australia are joining forces today in a battle against the harm caused by social media. Chris Binns and Peter Malinowskis already share common ground. Both states have banned mobile phones in schools, but they agree there's more to be done and have assembled a panel of experts. And we'll also hear directly from teenagers and young people about their experiences using social media. The South Australian Premier opened his address with powerful quotes from the families of children who struggled under the pressures of social media and took their own lives.
The pressure of befriending and unfriending and talking about each other through social media had a very negative impact on her. He didn't sleep well, was ruminating too much. He was locked in his thoughts. He felt like he did so much for his online friend and got so little in return.
Adults have exactly the same addictions in their life. And if we put ourselves in the shoes of children, young people, students, if we think about the life that they're currently living, that fear is completely understandable.
It's hoped the summit will bring about practical recommendations that can easily be adapted across the education and health sectors, as well as in the home. The summit will run here in Sydney all day before everybody packs up and heads over to South Australia, where a second event will take place tomorrow.
Taylor Ryan there. The Prime Minister will confront China over its ongoing maritime aggression and an outstanding trade ban on Australia during an in-person meeting today. Lucy Gray filed this report from Laos.
All grievances will be aired when Anthony Albanese sits down with Chinese Premier Li Qiang on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit today here in Laos. It's the Prime Minister's first meeting of a 3-day visit to the country where he'll discuss security and trade with Southeast Asian leaders.
So the next 2 days is an important opportunity for us to engage with our neighbours in what is, of course, the fastest growing region of the world in human history.
It's the second time Mr Albanese has sat down with Premier Lee after China's second in charge travelled to Canberra earlier this year. Since then, the PM has continued to advocate for the removal of an import ban on Australian lobster, the final of $20 billion worth of trade sanctions imposed by Beijing. He's also expected to call out China's violent attacks on countries like the Philippines in contested waters of the South China Sea.
My message will be a consistent one, which is that we'll cooperate where we can, we'll disagree where we must, and we'll have some direct discussions about some of the disagreements that are there.
While it's clear there are still significant disagreements between Australia and China, the Prime Minister is determined to maintain an open channel of communication, especially at a time when this region is so highly contested.
Lucy Gray there. Well, it's a race that stops the nation, but apparently not our politicians. Anthony Albanese is under pressure to reschedule a parliamentary sitting that clashes with Melbourne Cup Day. It would be the first time since 2011 that question time would fall on race day, with some MPs calling the decision un-Australian. The Victorian Racing Club says it would support Parliament moving the sitting day. Residents who leave their bins on the curb too long could soon be slapped with fines in excess of $300. A number of Port Adelaide Enfield locals have been shocked to receive warning letters in the mail. Under the council's waste management laws, bins can only be put out after 4 p.m. the night before collection and need to be brought back in prior to midnight the day after the rubbish is picked up. The council has called this a last resort following years of repeated warnings, but residents have hit back, labelling the fines absurd and ridiculous. Coming up today, Israel's plan to strike back at Iran following the massive missile attack. Plus the stunning moment, an iconic Las Vegas casino is reduced to rubble. Also ahead, no monkey business here, the clever chimp going viral over mealtime. And she's a chunky mama. Alaska crowns this year's fattest bear.
Clothes live on and on.
Cheer on the Subway Socceroos against China to help keep their World Cup dream alive. Tonight live on 10 and Paramount Plus.
US President Joe Biden and his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu have held a highly anticipated phone call discussing how Israel will respond to Iran's massive missile attack. It's believed to be the first time the pair have spoken to one another in weeks. Biden previously indicated he would not support a retaliatory strike on Tehran's nuclear program and urged Israel to avoid hitting the oil sector. Shortly after, Israel's defence minister said this about the looming attack.
Our attack will be lethal, precise, and above all, surprising. They will not understand what happened and how it happened. They will see the results.
As the war in Lebanon rages, a fresh rocket attack by Hezbollah militants has killed a couple in northern Israel. The man and woman aged in their 40s were fatally wounded by shrapnel while walking their dog. They're the first Israeli civilians killed since the conflict exploded 2 weeks ago. At least 150 missiles were fired. See the moment an iconic Las Vegas casino is reduced to rubble. It took just 22 seconds to bring down the Tropicana during a controlled demolition marked by a spectacular fireworks and drone show. After nearly 7 decades on the Strip, the hotel, which was featured in movies including The Godfather and James Bond, has been cleared to make way for the construction of a new 33,000-seat baseball stadium. Mourners gathered in a small town in Thailand for a cremation ceremony of the 23 young students and teachers who died in a bus fire last week. The school group was on a field trip to Bangkok when the bus caught fire, with only 22 people able to escape. In the wake of the accident, authorities have ordered more than 13,000 buses to undergo safety inspections. The prestigious Wimbledon tournament will soon be breaking a 147-year tradition. The All England club has confirmed it will be replacing line judges with electronic line calling from next year. The tech will be used to make the out and fault calls following extensive testing. It won't be the first tournament to adopt this, though. The Australian Open became the first Grand Slam championship to go digital in 2021. And while it's said to allow for quicker and more accurate decisions, there are concerns for the jobs of hundreds of trained officials. A chimpanzee turned social media celebrity has been spotted eating noodles with chopsticks. You heard that right. Just like humans, the clever chimp, who lives at a zoo in southwest China, stunned tourists with his incredible stunt. And it's not the first time Yu Wei has amazed onlookers. The 23-year-old chimp has previously been caught on camera showing off some domestic skills, seen sweeping, washing and doing the dishes. Now, you might remember last week we told you the hunt for Alaska's fattest bear had begun. And after days of online voting from around the world, we have a winner. This beast, named 128 Grazer, has officially been crowned the champion, beating out a fierce male rival. It marks the second straight win for the mother bear, who also claimed the title last year. Fat Bear Week has been running now for a decade and allows viewers to watch live cameras of Katmai National Park and pick their favourite. They're fattening up on salmon ahead of going into hibernation over the harsh winter months. Up next, to check of the day in finance with AusBiz. And breaking down the bizarre case of a missing family in New Zealand. A fugitive father on the run with his children in the wild, spotted for the first time in years. Time for a check of the day's finance, and joining me now is Juliet Saley from AusBiz. Juliet, Guzman and Gomez remain confident it's selling a whole lot of burritos.
That's right. Holy guacamole, as one analyst put it, and it actually smashed expectations with its first reported sales since listing on the ASX. Sales here in Australia coming in at $260.2 million for the 3 months to September. That was up by 19%. Sales in Singapore and Japan also rising, and the US market the only one to report a fall in sales in the quarter. Now, Guzman says it's likely to beat forecasts for the full year and is still planning to open 31 new stores in Australia in 2025. So still very bullish, even though a lot of analysts are not on the stock. We spoke earlier with Goldman Sachs saying that you should dump Guzman and Gomez shares for KFC. Instead, they see a 12% drop in the share price over the next 12 months, Ange.
So how are the markets looking today?
It is a good day. In fact, we're getting close to hitting potentially a record on the ASX 200, up 52 points there, 8,239. Rio Tinto and Arcadium also in focus today after Rio made a bid for Arcadium, and Arcadium shares are actually up by as much as 40%. Guzman there, as you can see, lower. Fortescue Metal shares are tracking higher. When it comes to the Aussie dollar, not a lot in terms of data, but we're waiting a speech from the RBA's Sarah Hunter tonight. It's at 67.2 US cents, $1.10 Kiwi. And continuing to watch, of course, moves in the oil market, particularly as we saw Hurricane Milton hit the Florida coast. It's just under $77 US a barrel. Ange.
Juliet Saley from AusBiz, thanks for your time. Still ahead today, the wild case of a fugitive father and his children on the run in New Zealand's wilderness. Plus, new details about the deadly helicopter crash into a Cairns hotel. Also ahead, payback from beyond the grave, why a Melbourne lawn bowler left his $1 million estate to a rival club. Then Supercars fans and teams gear up to take centre stage at the Bathurst 100. Ever since a fugitive father and his 3 children were spotted in the New Zealand wilderness this week, interest in the bizarre story has been sparked around the world. Karen Rutherford has been covering the story since 2021 and she joins us now from New Zealand. Karen, having followed this story for so long, suddenly seeing these pictures of Tom Phillips and all 3 of his children, what was that like?
Well, Ange, it was heartening to see that they were alive and well. There have been a lot of questions about Jada, Maverick and Ember since they initially went missing. Your viewers may remember back in September 2021, this family first disappeared, sparking a major search and rescue operation along the west coast of the North Island. A land, air and sea search after their father parked his ute on the beach at Kiritahiri, which is a very remote beach out there on the west coast. And it appeared that maybe they may have drowned. So there was a lot of concern at that stage, and he'd actually just taken them bush. They were gone for 17 days under a very deep canopy. The land, air and sea search failed to find them. They did walk back in the door at the family farm, but there was a bit of a custody dispute going on at that stage, Ange, and by December 2021, Tom Phillips was gone again with the 3 children, and none of them have been seen since as a group. So there were fears that they were alive, but we saw them there in that video captured by pig hunters the other day, a couple of teenage boys out in very rough terrain on their family farm out on the west coast, a farm which spans about 7 or 8 kilometres of this very rugged coastline. They saw the 4 in the bush along the farmland with camo gear on. They were heavily disguised. One of them called out to the group and said, "Hey, you know this is private property." And the eldest girl, who the mother now says she thinks was Jada, said, "Yeah, duh." And the young pig hunter said to them, "Well, does anybody know you're here?" And she simply said, "Only you." And then they trolleyed off on their merry way behind their father in single file. They all looked well, so it's positive.
Yeah. You mentioned they haven't been seen as a group any time since 2021, but there have been some sightings of Tom Phillips and perhaps one of the children, am I right?
That's right, and quite disturbing sightings that in May last year there was a bank robbery of the ANZ Bank in Te Kuiti, which is quite a remote town out on the west coast. That involved a slightly smaller young person on the back of a motorbike. I spoke to a witness at the time who said that she was shorter than her and shorter than me. I'm 5'2", so this was quite a small female. So some thoughts at that point that Jada may have been involved, but even the children's mother said no, surely not. Thomas wouldn't use the children in a robbery. But then we came to August last year and there were allegations of a stolen ute and, of course, a superette, which CCTV captured Thomas Phillips with a smaller person with him at that time trying to break into the Pew Pew superette. So there are a number of charges out on Tom Phillips, and police are very eager to find him. He is a wanted man. He was seen carrying a gun the other day through the bush, and people are being urged not to approach him because they're concerned, obviously, that he's going to be paranoid when, in fact, officers do catch up to him. But at this stage, they've had no luck.
How has he managed to keep himself and the 3 children hidden for all this time? And do authorities think they might have had help?
Absolutely, they feel that they've had help. Police for some time have been saying they believe people are helping to harbour Tom Phillips. If you go out to the West Coast, you get a real appreciation for the kind of communities that are out there. Wonderful, wonderful people. But some of those people choose to live out there for a reason. They don't like authority. They don't want to be told what to do. And they like to play their own game. They like to live off the grid. And they shun any sort of government direction, if you like, just to give you an idea. So there are people out there who want to see Tom succeed and who want to see those children stay in his custody, and therefore they are seem to be helping him. That is the feeling of the children's mother and her other siblings, as well as other wider family members. So it's a real mystery, but when you look at the terrain, it's very easy to see how they're not being spotted very often. There are lots of what we call tomo, that's the Māori word for caves. They are all over that west coast, and you're talking about hundreds of hectares of farmland and bush where you could be hiding at any one time in these caves. Very difficult to spot, even with heat sensing equipment on the Air Force helicopters, etc., which have been up.
Karen, just before I let you go, how is the mother of the children coping?
She has been coping with great difficulty for the last 3 years. I first interviewed her back in January 22 after Tom Phillips failed to appear in court on those first charges after he sparked that initial search and rescue operation. She's absolutely distressed. Obviously, there's a custody dispute behind all of this, and it's a bit of a he said, she said situation. But that said, she is still the children's mother. She hasn't seen them for almost 3 years. She said in the last couple of days she doesn't even know if she'd recognise them. They are now 11, 9 and 8. And Jada, the eldest, is obviously approaching puberty, so she's really concerned for them. Ember, the littlest girl, she's asthmatic, so their mother, Kat, is concerned at how she's getting an inhaler, for instance. That's why police and the wider family believe he is being helped, that people are potentially dropping off supplies to Tom Phillips and helping him to move under the cover of darkness and to stay hidden. But he is still within the vicinity of Marakopa, which is that tiny little community from which he first went missing. Remarkable.
Karen, it is an incredible story. Thank you so much for giving us all that detail. An investigation into a fatal helicopter crash in Cairns has found the pilot was affected by alcohol at the time of the collision. 23-year-old Blake Wilson was killed after crashing into a hotel back in August. Today, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau handed down its final report. Georgina Hill has more.
It was a late-night decision that claimed the life of 23-year-old Blake Wilson, but this helicopter crash could have been so much worse. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau has released a final report calling the flight unauthorised and unnecessary. Wilson had a pilot's licence from New Zealand but had never flown in Australia and was not authorised to use a Nautilus helicopter. The flight ended in a fiery explosion when the chopper smashed into the roof of the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel at around 2 a.m. back in August. Wilson worked at Nautilus but as a ground crew member and used his access pass to get into the hangar. The report said he'd been out drinking with friends at multiple locations when he decided to head to Nautilus and steal the helicopter. He was affected by a significant amount of alcohol before and during the flight. The helicopter was inverted when it crashed into the hotel. 2 of the chopper's rotor blades were flung off and landed in the hotel pool. 400 people were inside at the time. They had to be evacuated. An elderly couple were taken to hospital, but incredibly, no one else was killed. The report also stated that Wilson's family were understandably left devastated by what had occurred.
Georgina Hill there. A bowls club in Melbourne's northeast has found itself the unexpected recipient of more than $1 million. The funds were left by a bowler who'd only visited the club a couple of times. Abby Dinham has more.
The Donvale Bowls Club describes itself as the not-so-small friendly club that's always open to new members. But when one prospective new member named them as his sole beneficiary of his will, it came as a total surprise. Bruce Hallman bequeathed his total estate to the club upon his death in August last year. The only problem being Bruce was never a member of the Donvale Club. He was, however, a member of the Doncaster Bowls Club. Lawyers did get involved, but it was later discovered that in the months before his death, a Donvale member had picked Bruce up, brought him to the club for a roll and a beer, and the experience left a lasting impression.
The story was that Bruce apparently was just so pleased with the friendliness of our club. Naturally, Doncaster, he was a member of Doncaster. Naturally, they queried it, thinking, oh, this something might not be right. So they queried it, but that didn't last very long. They acknowledged that it was his wishes that it comes to our club, and we've all moved on.
The Donvale Bowls Club says nothing like this has ever happened to them before. They're intending to use the new funds to build a roof over the bowling greens and name it the Bruce Hallman Dome.
Abby Dinham there. Well, thousands of rev heads have headed to Mount Panorama with the first day of racing underway in Bathurst today. All of the supercars teams have been given new engines ahead of Sunday's 1,000-lap race, with the hopes unreliable Ford engines will be a thing of the past. Ben's Hammerley is there.
As you can probably see, things are kicking into gear here at the Bathurst 1000. Some 200,000 fans they're expecting over the next 3 days. Today the drivers hit the track for their official practice sessions. It's a big deal, especially for the teams running Ford engines, because they had some issues with their crankshafts after the Sandown 500. It's been a mission to source new parts, but all of the teams have new engines and they think those reliability issues are a thing of the past.
There was a delivery of the race engines here this morning, so all teams run fresh engines for this event. It's so important, 1,000 kilometres, so they all put in a fresh engine and they're all here and they're all ready to go.
It's the workload out of the engine shop, and since Sandown's been something I don't think we've ever seen before. Obviously from a performance point of view, you know, I think we've crossed all the T's, dotted the I's, but obviously we're anxious to get on the track.
A real mixture of nerves and excitement for all of the drivers and all of the teams, just hoping this is their week.
Yeah, you need a lot to roll your way over the 4 days, but it's never over until the end of Sunday, regardless of what happens, and that's what you always got to keep in mind.
Nervous excitement, I should put it that way, because it's sort of, if you didn't have those butterflies in your stomach, yeah, you're well past it.
Yeah, there's been so much planning going into this event. It's probably 3 months building into it, and when you get there on Sunday, you just hope you've all your plans have been executed through practice, and on the race you just want to make no mistakes. But it's a long old race, 1,000 kilometres, and anything can get thrown at you.
Impossible not to be caught up in the excitement around here. In just 3 days' time, we'll crown the next King of the Mountain.
Vince Hammerley there. Up next, all the day's entertainment news, including how you could see the star-studded cast of Gladiator 2 when they head down under. And Pamela Anderson opens up while being honoured at the Women of the Year Awards.
$95. Make bigger things happen at Officeworks.
Let's get into some entertainment news and prepare to be entertained, because the cast of Gladiator 2 is heading to Sydney's Darling Harbour for the film's Australian premiere. Gladiator's leading man, Paul Mescal, will be walking the red carpet with fellow castmates Collie Nielsen and Fred Hershinger in tow to present Ridley Scott's epic sequel to Aussie audiences. It comes only a day after the announcement that Gladiator 2 would be making its official global premiere in London next month for the Royal Film presentation, which will most likely see actual royals on the guest list. But at Sydney's event on October 30, fans can be on the guest list themselves, with tickets available to purchase. Tickets go on sale through Ticketek today, right at the end of this bulletin at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, so get in quick. And while those Hollywood stars are coming down under, we've also got one of our own headed back to the States, with the greatest showman himself, Hugh Jackman, making his return to New York to take on a residency at Radio City Music Hall. He made the announcement with his best mate, Ryan Reynolds.
Hey, Ryan, you want to come to one of my live performances at Radio City Music Hall?
Wait, you're going to be like singing and dancing and joking live?
Yep.
Am I going to be in it?
Absolutely.
I'll break out the eyeliner.
It's his first live concert since 2019 and will feature songs from The Greatest Showman, The Music Man, The Boy from Oz, as well as some surprises. The concert series is titled From New York with Love from Hugh Jackman, and it will have a 12-show run over select weekends from January to August next year. Tickets, please. Now, former Baywatch star Pamela Anderson has been honoured by Glamour magazine, where she was named as one of the Global Women of the Year. The 57-year-old actress recently appeared on the cover of the magazine, proudly sporting a no-makeup look.
I was really happy that Glamour actually put me on the cover of the magazine with no makeup on. And I just feel like this has just been my year to strip it all back, see what's underneath it all, and you know, you always have to keep that little fire burning within you, and you never know when opportunity comes. In my case, it took a couple decades, but I finally got the opportunity to do this. I'm so excited.
Anderson also won the Zurich Film Festival's Golden Eye Award for her upcoming film The Last Showgirl earlier this week. She was named the richest female musician in the world with billions to her name, but Taylor Swift is throwing a lifeline to those devastated by severe storms hitting America. The musician quietly donated $5 million to the charity Feeding America, benefiting communities affected by Hurricanes Helene and Milton. The charity thanked the megastar in a statement, saying the contribution will be used to provide food, clean water and essential supplies to those affected by the devastating storms. Swift was the first musician to become a billionaire, based only on the value of her songs and performances last year, with her net worth sitting at $1.6 billion. The newest queens in Drag Race Down Under have just been announced ahead of the latest season, and what better way to reveal the contestants from around Australasia than at a drag brunch? It was the pub where Guy Pearce and Hugo Weaving donned their makeup, took to the stage and launched the bus 30 years ago.
I hereby christen this budget Barbie camper Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Made famous by the seminal drag queen film Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Sydney's Imperial Hotel was also where the newest Down Under dolls sashayed onto the stage to make their debut as Drag Race's latest contestants. But this wasn't your regular cast announcement, with the crowd treated to all the colour and sequins expected from a drag brunch, including performances from Drag Race alumni like Sydney's own Coco Jumbo and etc, etc. And our Australasian queens aren't forgetting their roots.
I mean, we're standing right now in the Imperial Hotel in Erskineville, which is the home of Priscilla. I think Priscilla stands as this magical moment when drag was for everyone, and now we're seeing a moment again.
You know, we even went before the Priscilla, movie, we had these incredible icons from Les Girls. Australian drag, I think, is that the sisterhood that we have.
Rough around the edges kind of feel is more relatable and palatable to people.
The newest season of Drag Race Down Under is taking a fresh spin on the format, with RuPaul stepping away and passing the hosting duties to veteran judge Michelle Visage, who's promising to bring viewers into her house of dolls.
This season, the queens are in my house.
Woo! What's the tea, dolls?
Hailing from around Australia and New Zealand, Michelle's dolls said they're ready to sashay onto the main stage to snatch the crown as the next Drag Race superstar.
I love that our season we're able to showcase such different aspects of Down Under drag.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look at us. We could be twins. And I just think that's so beautiful.
These are the season 4 girls. That means there's been 3 other seasons where we didn't get cast. So the thing that defines this season is desperation. People that were looked over 3 other times.
Season 4 of Drag Race Down Under begins on the 1st of November on Stan. Coming up after the break, a look at the weather with 10 News First meteorologist Josh Holt, plus your daily dose of feel-good news, including why Pesto the chunky penguin is waddling back into the spotlight. And huge birthday celebrations for Hugo the tortoise. It's time now for a hit of good news with Daniel Doody.
And a very good afternoon to you, Ange. Over the years, an Australian charity group has been focusing on women's mental health and well-being. The CEO of the Lipa Foundation, Luke Morris, explains how the organisation supports those in need.
So we know that women face really unique societal and biological challenges during their lifetime that can place extra burden on their mental health. So when we do place gender at the forefront of our mental health approach, we have more accuracy around research, programs are more successful and services more effective. So it just really makes sense. We know women face, really, really unique, especially physical health conditions that can interplay with mental health quite closely. So from our research that we conduct every year, we're seeing a lot of alarming statistics, but one that we're really, really concerned about is a trend of women not prioritising their mental health. So we know that 1 in 2 Australian women are suffering from a mental health issue in the last 12 months, but less than half of those women are seeking support. So it's really important for us. I think in the past we've done some amazing work, especially with men when, men didn't talk a lot, didn't talk about their mental health. I think our next challenge with women is really to get them to prioritise their mental health and to take that time. I think women sometimes are the central hub of families. They tend to put others before themselves. So it's really important to take that time, prioritise and get your own mental health right as an Australian woman to be able to, best look after your own mental health before you're looking after others.
And what are some of the resources that you have in place to help women?
Yeah, so one of the best things women can do if you are feeling that your mental health has deteriorated is to go to the GP and get a mental health plan and seek help that way. But simple things like just doing things for yourself, taking that time to do something that, that makes you feel good, connecting with friends, connecting with wider networks.
Some great advice there. A change of pace. Pesto, the baby penguin, who rose to fame around the world for his chunky size, is back in the spotlight. The Melbourne celebrity has been captured in a mural created by street artist Lucas Casper. Locals and tourists will find the artwork on Higson Lane in the CBD. And all 22 kilos of Pesto himself can be seen at Sea Life Melbourne Aquarium. There's a huge celebration for Hugo the Galapagos tortoise, who turned 74 today. Staff at the Australian Reptile Park surprised the zoo's oldest resident with a fruitcake made from watermelon, kiwi fruit, rock melon and berries. Hugo, who weighs 183 kilos, wasted no time munching away on all the healthy treats. A big happy birthday to Hugo. And finally, this is the moment too. Panda cubs opened their eyes for the very first time at Berlin Zoo. Both cubs are only 6 weeks old and weigh just over 2 kilograms. The pair have started to react to their surroundings, blinking and moving about. Visitors to the zoo will be able to see them next week. How adorable, and very cute.
Dudes, penguins, pandas and a giant tortoise. What more do you need in life?
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time now for a check of the weather with 10 News First meteorologist Josh Holt. And Josh, there were some big storms that hit southeast Queensland.
Yeah, they certainly were, Ange, and they did deliver plenty of rainfall across the region. Let's have a look at the satellite imagery. As you can see, a lot of that cloud cover and storm activity is now moved offshore, which is great news. But as we wind the radar back, just have a look at this line of severe thunderstorms that pushed through southeast Queensland yesterday, delivering 170 millimetres into the rain gauge across parts of the Gold Coast. That caused localised flooding. As you can see, we've had showers persist during this morning, but some of that shower activity is starting to abate and hopefully allowing some of that floodwater to begin to recede, especially across areas of the Gold Coast. Let's have a look at the big picture tomorrow. We've got a broad area of high pressure in the Tasman, a cold front sweeping across southeastern Australia. You can see those southwesterly or westerly winds in behind it, still penetrating the west coast of Tasmania. Broad area of high pressure over the southern part of the continent. Relatively clear skies for most areas as we get through Friday. We will see the odd shower persist through the eastern parts of Queensland, certainly not as heavy as what we have seen over the past couple of days, and the odd shower through the southern parts of WA and Western South Australia. But all in all, a pretty good day as we get through tomorrow. We're looking at pretty much fine skies down the east coast, just a chance of a shower for Sydney, partly cloudy for Adelaide and likewise for Perth. But let's have a closer look now. We're looking at temperatures of 27 degrees for Ipswich and 25 for Logan tomorrow. 24 for the Gold and Sunshine Coast. For areas of Sydney, a shower or two. We're not expecting much into the rain gauges tomorrow. There'll be dry periods as well to get out and about. 27 degrees on the way for Richmond and Penrith. For areas of Melbourne, we're looking at a mostly sunny day. 18 degrees for Essendon and Werribee, the city topping out at 17 tomorrow. Across parts of Tassie, it will be wet and windy with that cold front moving across the state. 16 degrees for Hobart and 18 on the way for Launceston. Probably not seeing so much there due to it being a little bit more protected from that westerly airflow. We're looking at sunny skies for Elizabeth, 22 the top. Nuriupta there in the Barossa looking nice as well, sunny and 21. Across the southwest to WA, 30 degrees, a warm day for Perth. We're looking at 31 for Bickley, 27 for Mandurah and 21 degrees for Dwelling up tomorrow. So all in all, the weather should start to improve across a large portion of Australia as we head towards Friday. And of course, it's what we love to see, Ange, as we head towards another weekend.
It's what we like to hear. Thanks, Josh. And that's the latest news for this Thursday, the 10th of October. I'm Angela Bishop. Join us for more at 3:30 and then your local 10 News First at 5 o'clock. Until then, have a great afternoon.
I have always wanted to throw a pie in somebody's face.
Well, it's fake food.
Oh, what the heck.
Ladies and gentlemen, here are the stars of our show. Jack and Vanna White.
We're like the Three Stooges now. We're doing pies. What's the deal here? Thank you, Jim. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate that. Have a nice trip. I'll see you later. Hello, gang. Good to see you all. Grab those devices and let's get to it. We have lots of money to give away here. $1,000 on our first toss.